Hello, everyone, and
Tracy?
welcome to our first webinar series. We maybe wait 3 minutes to be sure that everyone who registered is coming in. It's really exciting to have all of you here. Sorry for these technical issues, but that's part of our modern life. So I think we can start again. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ilaria Tucci, she, her, and I have the pleasure to be the moderator of this first webinar that is part of the webinar series that we are going to coordinate for the next 4 years. And this is also our contribution as a European Peace Research Association to the Peace Network. And we invite all of you to stay also tuned for the next webinars. We will have altogether 12 webinars. Before starting, I would love to present you the Safer Space guidelines for this webinar series. And every time we will go through the webinar series, every time we will go through the Safer Space rules for every webinar session. We try to be understanding and considerate towards each other. And we understand that people have different views, delivery of speech, knowledge of interest. We also do our best to ensure that the atmosphere is open, inclusive, and there is space for everyone to express their viewpoints. We avoid generalization and stereotypes when talking about certain groups. And also we want to encourage the fact that discrimination, harassment of any kind, including sexism, racism, ableism, ageism, transphobia, homophobia, and fat shaming have no space in this webinar and this webinar series. And if someone has been discriminatory or harassing others, please show your support to the person who was harassed. And also if something happened that you realize you cannot really react instantly, but you have a second thought afterwards, please do not hesitate to contact us. And here you can find the email webinar series@uprapeace.org. Also, we encourage you to consult our safe space and code of conduct in our webpage. Is present here. You have the QR code. I kindly ask every one of you of reacting about these safe space guidelines. If you can please react with the thumb up or heart, so I understand that we all agree about this. Of course, if anyone has a question or comment. Thank you, Alexander. So there is no thumb up. I'm so used nowadays to work with Teams that I'm again a new born with Zoom. So you can write in the chat, or you can raise your hand as well. I understand that is about making sure that we make sure that we all agree about this. Okay, so I guess we can move on. Before telling you about the next webinars, I want just to briefly tell about EUPRA. It may be that it might be that for you is a familiar association, but maybe for many of you is not, depending of how you ended up today to attend our webinar. EUPRA is a non-profit organization. Currently, we are legally based in Tampere, Finland, but originally it was founded in the 90s in Germany. And the purpose of the organization is to advance interdisciplinary research in the case of war and conditions of peace, and to coordinate networks of peace scholars, activists, and peace research institutes around Europe. So the main activities and the biggest event in the last 30 years that EUPRA has been organizing has been a biannual conference on peace-related topics. And the last conference was held in November 2024 in Pisa, Italy. So this is about us, our community, and this is the slide you see now in the screen is the preliminary schedule for 2025. So today we are having the first webinar launching the Peace Initiative and also launching our webinar series. We will have a summer break, and then between September and October, we will have the second webinar about peace and climate, organized in cooperation with the working group Peace and Climate, and we'll tell a bit more about the structure of the project later. The date will be defined soon in the next weeks. And then between November and December, we will have the third webinar in cooperation with the Feminist Peace working group. Those are thematic pillar defined by each working group. So as I said, we have different working groups, one in peace and climate, another one in feminist peace, and later on we will have also webinar with the working groups on local peace, peace and emerging technologies, and Europe and peace and security. We also want to bring in the webinar series interdisciplinary topics. So we will have sessions where we will try to seek energies among the working groups, and also welcome different kind of topics. For example, academic writing methodologies or decolonizing peace. Okay, so but what about today? Today, we are going to introduce the webinar series, as I said, but also to answer to all the questions you may have regarding our Peace Initiative project. Also, you may want to know how to participate in the Peace Network or in any other aspect of the project. And for these reasons, we are going to have also Q&A sessions at the end. Next slide, please. I'm really honored to moderate the discussion with three brilliant speakers. The first one is Niels Duque, who's the director of the Flemish Peace Institute. He started working at the Flemish Peace Institute as a researcher in 2006, and he's author of more than 70 policy-oriented and academic publications on illicit firearms trafficking and gun violence in Europe, also domestic gun policy and European arms export controls. Niels has coordinated several large-scale European research projects on gun violence and arms trafficking in Europe. After Niels, we will listen, well, Niels will give us a general presentation of the project, but also he will also go into details about the different actions within the project, especially with the insight from the conference we just had in Brussels at the beginning of May. After Niels, we will listen to Anush Petrosian, and Anush is a doctoral researcher at Tampere Peace Research Institute at Tampere University in Finland. And she has been also, she has served also as a board member of UPRA, so she's a really dear colleague of us. Her research interests are memory in post-conflict reconciliation, memorialization and peace processes, and the role of intergenerational transmission of memory in post-conflict societies. And Anush is in charge of, today is in charge of explaining us how the cost rules and procedures are working to apply grants within the action. So she will give us a really interesting and useful information about how to be part of the community as a grant holders. And finally, we have Paola Minoia, Professor Paola Minoia. Paola is adjunct professor in development studies at the Faculty of Social Sciences from University of Turin, Italy. And she works in areas like global development, environmental politics, socio-ecology and of water, land rights, ecological knowledges, intercultural education, post-colonial and decoloniality, indigenous peoples, and community-based conservation and tourism platforms. Paola has been part of many cost projects previously in her career, so she's also giving her reflections today about the value of being part of a cost, and especially in terms of participating as early research, early career researchers, sorry. And finally, as I said, we will have a time for Q&A. So we are really excited to hear from you, and hopefully we will be also able to have a great and fruitful discussion. So at this point, I guess, next slide, please. I can leave the floor to Niels. Please, Niels, you have about 10 minutes to present your slides. And we try to keep the questions for the end of the three presentations. Of course, if people have questions in the chat, you're really welcome to write in the chat, and we try to answer at some point. Niels, the floor is yours. I should say.
Yeah, thank you, Ilaria, and thank you to all of your colleagues as well for organizing the first webinar of the Peace Research Community Europe. I'm very excited to be here. As Ilaria said, I'm the director of the Flemish Peace Institute, which is a research institute affiliated to the Flemish Parliament in Belgium. And we do a lot of research on issues related to weapons, arms trade, trafficking, but also look at local peace and also look at how we can integrate peace into a foreign policy perspective as well. But I'm here because I'm the chair of this new Cost Action Peace. I'm very excited that we started this project a couple of months ago. And this is something that is not new to us. This is a new cost action, but we've been trying to really work on connecting peace researchers from across Europe for a couple of years now. We started out a couple of years ago when we decided to organize a couple of meetings and workshops with different peace institutes from across Europe and trying to see how we can strengthen our message. There's a lot of differences between peace researchers across the continent, but the one thing that they all have in mind is that they want to make the world a better place and they want to have more peace. And then the question came, how can we strengthen each other? Because sometimes peace researchers know each other, sometimes these peace institutes work together, but this is not always the case. And this was very interesting when we started organizing these meetings, that it was really about getting to know each other and trying to see what are the challenges that we have in bringing the research and the research results to, for example, the policy field. How can we strengthen this whole peace narrative that all of us are trying to achieve by doing research, by doing scientific studies? So we organized a meeting about 2 years ago called Reimagining Peace, where we brought a lot of people together to Brussels try to talk about these different challenges and try to see how we could move forward. And from those discussions, we decided that, first of all, we needed funding in order to really have a structural network and organize activities on a regular basis. And we were looking for different options, and we went to the cost action program, which I think was quite suitable for the aim, for our aim, basically, for achieving our aim. Next slide, please. What is cost action? Well, cost action is a framework, European cooperation in science and technology, that is basically an intergovernmental framework with 42 member countries, including one, what they call a partner member country, which is South Africa, which is a bit special because it's for the rest of European research cooperation. And this research cooperation gets funding from the EU through various research and innovation framework programs. Now for the past 54 years, if I'm not mistaken, since 1971, COST is in action and is actually been receiving this EU funding. Why is cost action so interesting for us? Because the main aim of cost action is bringing researchers together, is creating bottom-up networks, interdisciplinary networks of researchers from various fields. Our PEACE network consists of PEACE researchers, but you also have researchers working on medieval literature, for example. You have people working on the effects of butterflies on nature, and so on and so on. So it's a very broad domain of research topics that cost action is trying to strengthen by building these networks. And I think this is very important for us because this was exactly our main objective. Now, all cost action programs that have been approved have a duration of 4 years and a budget of approximately 600,000 euros. And each year we have to renegotiate our budget depending on the proposal that we develop as part of our annual work and budget plan. So I cannot tell you yet how much budget exactly we will have next year, but we know it's going to be around 150,000 euros in total, which means that we will get some funding available for us that we can use for various activities. If you want to know more about cost action itself, I urge you to visit the website, Cost EU, but in the remaining 6-7 minutes I have, I prefer to talk more about our PEACE network than to talk about cost action in itself. Next slide, please. So what is this PEACE, cost action PEACE? It stands for PEACE Research Community Europe. We started in October and we have a duration of 4 years, as I mentioned. The 3 main objectives for us is developing new understandings of peace, innovation, and interdisciplinary research on these topics, on these various topics of peace. Second is really to stimulate cooperation between the researchers. My hope is that in the coming years, we will actually see new projects popping up, new proposals for getting funding to do all kinds of research. It's something that I really hope we can achieve by developing this network. And of course, and this is very important, as I mentioned in the beginning, we want to strengthen the peace narrative. So basically, we want to have more societal impact. When we started preparing for this cost action piece, we were starting to look at, what are the different topics that we need to focus our work on? Because peace research is such a broad domain. What are the 5 domains that we think are very, very topical right now, domains that we really need to put a lot of attention to? And we decided to focus on the following 5 thematic working groups, which are, let's say, the backbone of the network. And each of the working groups have its own leadership. So each working group has 2 leaders, 2 co-leaders who will organize the activities of the working groups. The first working group is on climate and peace. The second one is on feminist peace. The third one is on local peace. The fourth one is on peace and emerging technologies. And then the 5th one is on Europe, peace and security. Next slide, please. Now, what are we going to do with these working groups? Well, they will organize various types of activities. It's not really decided yet which ones will take place in the coming weeks and months and years to come. This is really under development, as I will discuss a bit later. But it's going to be various types of activities, going from very methodological workshops to more policy-oriented events, research papers, edited books. A lot of things are possible right now. But what I think is very important to highlight is that we have a lot of focus, especially for the early career researchers. So we will start a next generation mentorship program that will last the coming 3.5 years, let's say, We will organize summer schools for master students to learn more about peace research. And we also will organize webinars, and this is the first one that is being organized. So a lot of target groups, of course, the research community. We will have specific output for the research community with a special focus for the early career researchers. We want to focus on the policymakers, try to get them engaged as well, that they come to our conferences, that they come listen to the webinars, that they really can bring some of the research back to their policy desks. But we also want to try to reach a broader audience because there's a lot of people interested in issues related to peace and conflict. So this is in general what we will be doing. Again, if you want to know more, we have a website since 4 weeks. We have a website called peaceresearchnetwork.eu. You can find more information on the website itself on the various working groups. You will also see the different leadership positions, and importantly, you can also click on the application page that will bring you to Cost Action, where you can immediately apply to become a member of the working groups, which of course is very important if you want to be able to also benefit from some of the funding that is available. Next slide, please. So where are we now? We are still in the first year, and the first year is really focused on building the network. What does that mean? Well, we have to get used to all of the administrative rules that are connected to cost. We needed to really develop the structure of the network, trying to see who's going to be in charge of what can we actually do in the coming years, and who will organize these different activities, but also advertise the network. Trying to make sure people from across Europe or abroad who actually have an interest in joining the network, that they at least know it exists. And this is also why I'm looking at all of you on my screen. You guys will also be our ambassadors. I hope that you will spread the message, talk to people about what we are doing, because we really want to find people and have them join our network. And I'm very happy to say that today we almost have 300 working group members. So this is quite a large amount of people that we already have. And what is really nice to see, these are people coming from across Europe, from the different parts of Europe, really from south to east to north, from east to south, everywhere. And this is something that was really important for us, is that we also have this geographical spread, that we have the diversity in the different profiles that are really important to us. So there's a lot of activities and initiatives that we will take to make sure that we have a nice representation of the peace researchers from Europe included in the network. And this is also important to stress, because this is also something that we wanted to achieve with the kickoff conference that Ilaria just mentioned. On the 8th of May, we had our first conference in Brussels in the Flemish Parliament. We had more than 130 people to participate in the conference. Many came in person. We also had people joining online, basically getting a general introduction into the network, first discussions of the working groups on specific topics. We also had a keynote speech by Severino Tesser, and we had a debate on policy implications and possibilities for practitioners to go and work with the peace research results. So I think the main idea there was getting to know each other, making sure that we were a real network, making sure that people could help us advertise the network, and trying to talk about peace and see how we could bring that closer to being achieved, which is, I think, something which is quite a big challenge today. The day after, we had a general meeting. About 90 people participated there as well. And this was the first time the working groups actually met in person, where we had the first discussions within the working groups on different activities that will take place in the coming 3.5 years. So this is basically where we are now. Maybe just before I finish, what are the next steps? Maybe the next slide, please. So the next steps are the coming months. What are we going to do the coming months? Well, the different working groups will actually start organizing their activities. We will have several thematic webinars, as Ilaria already mentioned, but also important, and this is also where we could use your input. We will start preparing for the Next Generation program. We will start preparing for the summer schools. These will take place in 2026. So all the good ideas that you might have, don't hesitate to share them with us. The coming months, we will really start developing all of that for the next 3 years to come. We are also going to start using some of the grants that are available, but Anush will discuss that more into detail. And then finally, I think this is an important one where I'm also trying to reach out to all of you. What we are trying to do as well is map the peace researchers in Europe. Not just the people who have joined the network, but the different institutes, research groups, individual researchers working on these topics. It would be great to know who's doing what. So this is something that's very important to us as well in the coming months and even coming years. The idea is that on our website, you will actually be able to see who's doing what type of peace research in the different European countries, trying to make it easier for people to connect on certain topics or within certain countries, so that we can really contribute to getting more projects entering, getting funding, and so on. So we really want to move forward on this. Again, if you have any ideas, don't hesitate to contact me. You can find all my details on our website as well. I think these were my 10 minutes, Ilaria, so I'll give the floor back to the other speakers.
Thank you so much, Niels. Thank you so much for your presentation and explanations. And I just want to say that we'll now go to the presentations, and then we will open the sessions for questions and answers. So I understand that people are now a bit excited about participating, but we need first to listen. And so you can have your questions well formulated. So please, Anush, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Ilaria. As Ilaria already mentioned, my name is Anush Petrosyan. I'm a grant awarding coordinator as part of the Peace Action. But as a researcher, I'm a doctoral researcher based in Tampere Peace Research Institute at the moment. So I will be talking mostly about the grant awarding processes set forward by the Coast Association, and there will be also a couple of links at the end where you can go through the user guide and also all of the annotated rules that the Coast Association has put together, which I believe will be important because my presentation might be a little bit heavy with terminology that might be new for you if you're not used to the Coast Association yet. So I will be talking about the grants that there are available that you can apply to through this to disseminate your research in relation to peace studies, to move around, to network and establish new cooperations with various researchers on the topics that the Peace Action is tackling, but as also establish new networks and get to know other researchers as well. So in the first year, as Niels said, we have been mostly working on setting the project going. And in the first year, I would from the very beginning say that we have only dissemination conference grants available at the moment, where we are trying to disseminate information about the Peace Action, but already from the next year, more grants will be available. So it is great that you're here from the very beginning and you can already start familiarizing yourself with this. I would say that the grants are divided into two sections. First is targeted conferences, and then the other one is more targeted at mobility, be it in person or virtual. So in the next slides, I will talk about each one of these grant types that you see on your screen, and a little bit also how the application goes and so on and so forth. So I will start with the first one. So next slide. Yeah, so the first one is the dissemination conference grant that I already mentioned, and the main idea of this type of the grant is to increase the visibility of the action, in our case the Peace Action, and also to draw attention of researchers who are working on the topics that Niels already mentioned, and to draw participants to join our action. And people who are already affiliated to the Peace Action are able to apply to take part in disseminating conference grant. These are mostly oral presentations provided in like third-party organized conferences anywhere in the world, and you can apply for up to 2,500 maximum if it's a face-to-face conference, and also for 500 euros if it's a virtual conference. Next slide. The next one is the so-called Inclusive Target Countries Conference Grant, which targets, as it said, the target countries or inclusiveness target countries, which are countries that are not, so to say, heavy in when it comes to research. And all of this you can find out in the Cost Association website. You can go there and scroll a little bit to understand and to learn which countries are considered or are part of the inclusiveness target countries. And this is to support the grantee for presenting their work and establish new collaboration, and any researcher affiliated with this so-called ITCs or the near neighbor countries can apply to it. So examples of it are, for example, Albania, Armenia, Georgia, Moldova, Turkey, and so on and so forth. And this is again oral presentations of the work of the researcher, which lies in the scope of our cost action and is based on, of course, the values set in the Memorandum of Understanding. And this can take place anywhere in the world. And the funding is same as for dissemination activities, maximum 2,500 euros for face-to-face conferences and 500 euros for virtual conferences. Next slide, please. As Niels already said, for us, inclusiveness is important, and inclusiveness in this case also applies to drawing the attention of young researchers. And my slides are gone. I don't know if you can see, but at least I don't see them anymore.
They're back.
Okay. It is so much better than that now I can see everyone. People's cameras are off yet, but it would be great if you can switch them on so we can see each other. I only see the last thank you slide, Bram. I don't know if you've changed it back. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So talking about inclusiveness, we consider both established researchers' applications, but also it's a priority to have young researchers. And there is a specific grant that is called Young Researchers in Innovator Conference Grant, which is again to support young researchers to network and increase their visibility in research community. And when it comes to also increasing the visibility of the action, but also to networking. And here you can already see that people aged below 40 years old can apply for this particular type of grant. And this can be either an oral or poster presentation on the work of the person in the scope of our action. And again, it can be anywhere, the conference can be anywhere in the world, and it's again up to 2,500 for face-to-face conferences and 500 for virtual conferences. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the next one is already about mobility grants. As I said, the first three that were presented are more about conferences and what kinds of conferences you can attend through these grants. But then we also have short-term scientific missions, which allow participants or applicants to support their career development and or, for example, to visit an established institution if you need to further enhance your knowledge of particular methods or theories or work or case studies, and you have found a person or an institution that is established for those purposes, and you can travel there for longer stays and learn and enhance your knowledge and network. And in this case, already anyone can apply. There is no age restrictions as long as the applicant is from a host member country or a near neighbor country. So in this case, the host institution should not be in the same country from which you are applying. So it must be established, or the host country must be somewhere outside of your home country. And this is a bit higher already, and you can apply for up to 4,000 euros. Next slide, please. And the next one, and the last one that I'll be presenting is the virtual networks support, which means basically that it is allowing people to participate in career development or any other kind of movement that is happening virtually online in a virtual space. And again, it should be contributing overall to the efforts by the action and also the grantee. And here, the maximum amount that person can get is 1,500 euros. Next slide, please. Okay, so these were the types of grants that we have. I want to emphasize that you can apply both for, let's say, attending a conference that you have seen, that you think fits the values and also the goals and objectives that is set forward in the Memorandum of Understanding and by the logic of our peace action. And it is done on rolling basis. So we do not have particular calls for a conference. But as Niels already mentioned, we will have summer schools and we will have the Next Gen project, which will be funded through the framework of our grants awarding. So we will have open calls then when we have the school or the Next Gen program coming up, and then there will be more details presented there. Here you can see how the evaluation happens. We are currently going through setting up grant awarding criteria, which will improve the assessment processes. And once we already have more funding for the grants in the next year, starting from year 2, then we will be able also to upload soon the criteria once it goes to the second round of discussion at the management committee level, and once it is accepted. At this moment, it is going undergoing editing process after the first management committee discussion that took place in the beginning of May, and we hope very much that already within the next couple of months, the final criteria will be ready and it will be absolutely posted in our website that Niels already presented. So once you apply through the system, you have to send your application through the ecosystem, which I hope you will get the chance to test a little bit sometime after this meeting. You will be sending your application to me, the grant awarding coordinator, but it will also go to Niels, who is the the leader of our action, and also to the grant holding manager, Margarita Ferro. I think Margarita is here as a participant today in this meeting. So we will be working together as a team. Usually we will most probably be evaluating it as a group together, but when it comes to summer school and Next Gen, we will also have ad hoc groups put in place, made up with members from the working groups that Niels already presented to you. So we will be receiving your applications. We will review the application based on the grant awarding criteria, and then we will either approve or reject already based on the application quality and the evaluation that is conducted either by those involved in grant management or also the ad hoc group that will be established for the summer school and Next Gen programs. As soon as you get the letter, grant awarding letter by grant holding manager, then you will be able to already start all of your bookings. For each of these categories of grants that I presented, there are different documents required by the Coast Association. So you will, in certain cases, need more documents, or in certain cases, less documents, which will be found also both in our grant awarding criteria in the future, as well as in the Coast Association annotated rules. And no later than 30 days after the completion of the activity, or no later than 15 days after the end of the grant period, whichever comes first. Then you will have to submit your report, and once approved, or if it has to undergo any kind of discussion and then approved, the grant holding manager will be able to release the payment and pay you back for all of the expenses that you have made. And this is a cooperative process. I must say we work, it's decentralized process, but at the same time cooperative process. So there might be cases also that, let's say, if a revision happens or evaluation happens and we notice that the funds are asked, if there's too much funds asked or not enough, we might be able to also reach out to you and consult with you on this process. So it is cooperative also in that sense, and we're able to collaborate through the ecosystem. I think that's it. Maybe if I can see the next slide. Next slide. Yes, these are the documents that I was saying in the very beginning, the user guide and the annotated rules. They're extensive documents, but I would very much recommend that you look into them. The grant wording user guide has more like screenshots and technical guide also, what you have to attach, how the reporting works, what documents need to be submitted, and the annotated rules already explains more. But of course, I recommend, as Niels also recommended, to look into our website to learn more of what opportunities there are. And also, I definitely recommend going to the Coast Association website, because you will find much more information there in details and maps as to which countries are part of the coast, which are near neighbor countries, which are not, and so on and so forth. So these are important documents that, I don't know, Ilaria, maybe you can correct me. Perhaps you will receive, everyone will receive the slides, but if not, then we will definitely send these important guides that are out there. And hopefully, I very much hope, at least after the summer holidays, or we will have already the grant awarding criteria put in place on our website, which you can also check out and already start thinking about what kind of grant you would like to apply in the future. That's
Thank you so much, Anush. We are a bit running late, but we still want to hear from Paula. Paula, please try to stay in 10 minutes.
So I hope so.
Yes, because it would be really nice to have the chance to listen to the questions. I can feel already from the chat that there is a really strong will to participate, but still I'm asking everyone to wait a bit to listen and then to have this Q&A session. So maybe we will have a bit shorter session, but please, Paula, the screen is yours.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this webinar. To say the truth, at the beginning, I didn't catch that it was about administrative settings, but yeah, I'm really happy to contribute with what my experience has been in the past. I'm an associate professor in geography and at the University of Torino, and but I've participated when I was still working in Helsinki as a senior lecturer and adjunct professor in global development studies. So that's why. I've been involved in not so many cost actions, but in two, and one of which is the one from which I can tell you, what I've learned, because it's fresh. It's just ended last year, less than a year ago, and actually it has some overlap with this with the topic of this peace action. It's on decolonizing development, and for which I was the coordinator of one working group. So there are a few things, maybe administratively, there have been little changes, but I don't think so much. So to say the truth, the coordination has been very challenging since it started in 2029, which means that for over 2 years during the COVID, all the activities were online. So, and that was quite challenging for creating a community and a networking area. So speaking about my working group, during the first year, we organized mainly webinars. And I would say that at the beginning, we did the first brainstorming on how to subdivide these topics that are really wide. I mean, mine was on research, on decolonizing development. So it was important to make a breakout into themes that are more operationally manageable. So manageable units with some thematic, specializations, and where participants could gather. Then so the whole working group was then divided in other subgroups. Which was useful for people that were having more similar interest. So it was important in this way to identify areas of interest for future dialogues in forms of other webinars or workshops in person, or summer schools, or short-term visits, or virtual mobility grants. Yeah, at first, so we organized some webinars inviting scholars of the networks to speak, but also external ones, because it was important to create an inspirational basis, even having people who were not part of the network. So we had around one webinar per month for each working group. So it was really, really challenging. I mean, a lot of work. And participation was very high in the beginning, especially because we were able to attract quite well-known scholars, but it was also then good to host the webinars to hear about researches done by active participants, either seniors or early career, like postdoc researchers who are maybe very strong in terms of scientific contributions, but very often are in temporary positions. So I have to say that at the beginning we had really a lot of people attending the webinars, but then the number decreased, especially because we were overwhelmed by so many webinars online at that time during the pandemic period. And then after 2 years, finally, we were able to hold a general meeting in presence, which was excellent, not at all a formal event. What we needed, I repeat, was to create the community, and for which we had also a facilitator, so that instead of sitting quietly, as passive spectators of speakers, which we may like or not, we got everyone involved in exercises meant to collect voices, experiences, desires, partnerships. So, and then the core group decided to spend the cost money for scientific actions, not for management activities. So, which is something that I would suggest also to consider, because the risk was to spend the little money of the network, having people sometimes who want to travel and want maybe to start looking at the new theme, but they're not. Sometimes there is a big desire to enter in a topic, but then since it's not what we do in our daily activities, then it's not the scientific focus of our work. So sometimes the risk is to let aside those who are more interested and have already some experience or some interest beside the network, beyond the network. So therefore, what we did was to have the management committee meetings remained only as an online activity with the required votes done through the COST website. So, I think it's an interesting possibility. So I would say that the COST had an overall democratic budget decision. We left aside the budget for short-term missions and virtual mobility grants, and then the budget was divided between the working groups for in-person meetings and one summer school per year. And the budget within the working groups was based on proposals from participants. They needed to get coordinated in order to have at least 3 proposers. So, I mean, the requirement from COST is to have 3 persons of the network from 3 different, at least, this is the minimum, at least 3 different countries to make a proposal for a workshop or a seminar. So they were sending concept paper and details that we were then discussing. And so this was done once per year. There was a deadline by which to send these proposals. So for instance, a very successful series of seminars was the one we did organize for having a special issue for a quite important international journal. So at first we had a call for abstracts, then the participants were selected among those who sent the abstracts, and we had 2 meetings. The first one in Padova, it was for presentations and initiations of writing. I mean, of course, this is absolutely, it's a sort of also mentorship, but also peer help, peer support in initiating the writing, also to be on the same page, I mean, with what we considered, you know, within that call for abstracts. And then a second one, the second meeting was in Spain, organized at the Cordova, by Cordova University. And it was to read and have the peer review and discussions around the full or almost full papers. So, and this was amazingly important, as I said, especially for early career, but also for more senior authors. Then we had summer schools organized in conjunction with doctoral schools, for instance, in Coimbra at SESH, in order to increase the audience and have more funding to invite people. So it was a joint coordination, which was important also to support the expenses. So every time, I don't know if you have a different limitation, but every time that there is an activity organized by a partner of the network, a member of the network, so for their institution, there is a lump sum that can be requested. I mean, it needs to be justified, but it was something like 305,000 at that time. So, I mean, to support organizational expenses, I think it was good. Then quite important, as already mentioned, are the short-term missions. Usually they are meant for early career researchers who can go to work at the institution of another country. And the call for proposals, I mean, for the calls for short-term missions grantees can be fully open, but sometimes designed for specific purposes decided by the group members. But still funding is decided upon good proposal. I mean, the quality of the proposals showing the added value for the network, and also the proposal should show some deliverables at least. We were saying a post for the blog, for the website of the project. But I would say that, well, of course, the value is not just making the work together with the hosting person, member, but also experiencing new institutions and way to work in other institutions, libraries, access to journals, which sometimes in poorer universities are not accessible, or how to see how research groups work. So to have a dimension of also small communities that sometimes we don't have in our own institutions, and we are quite lonely in our research. So it's good to have to see who does something that I mean, otherwise we would be lonely in our home universities. That's why I believe it's very, very important for early career, for their formations, but sometimes can also be very important for more advanced scholars too, especially if they don't have the possibility to do research, I mean, in this way, on this focus. So sometimes this has brought to new joint publications too. So one thing that I would like to highlight is the importance also of the virtual missions. They were initiated during the COVID. Before the COVID, they were not existing in the COST world. But since it was impossible to travel, that was the only option to have exchanges. But it's good that they have been confirmed, because they are also important for people who cannot travel even now, because, for instance, they have caring duties in their families or other challenges. For instance, we got a lot of cases of denial or delayed of visa appointments for people who are originally not from Europe, but maybe are based in the UK, and to enter Europe they need a visa. And so it was so much delayed that there were seminars or things that we needed to turn into hybrid forms because they couldn't come. So, but besides that, also the virtual missions, we have used them to contribute in specific tasks. Like, for instance, we needed to have literature reviews or collection of national regulations on certain topics. So I think also they could be good even in this mapping exercise that Niels was saying. So I think that anyway, very important for the success of this grant is always the collaborative relations between host and the visitor. So that the visitor is not left alone. And after the period, oh my God, I mean, because there's no this physical contact, it could happen that and also we're always busy. So then I would also stress about the importance of the mailing list of the network, because that was also a good tool used by anybody for spreading information, for instance, on events organized also outside the network, on new publications on the theme of the network. So of course, during the first years, we had quite good exchanges of emails and active spaces in the platforms to collect, for instance, each one's expertise and interest. And in order to have an active network, we also had a lot of debates on emails that turned out to another outcome, another deliverable, we could say in bureaucratic terms. But we were forming some statements of the network regarding specific topics that were current and importance. So in some cases, not all members wanted to sign, but so not the whole community, but many did. And unfortunately, sometimes given the topic, and I think that could be, I don't know, but could be also the case not to overlook. We had conflicts because there were new challenges that in some cases were difficult to moderate. So especially because there were, I mean, this current time, I mean, there are many facts that happen to people in their countries and or in their, I mean, of origin. So we published a document which was titled, and then I closed, then it's finished, Understanding of Shared Values of the Cost Action Decolonizing Development. So I can send the link if it's of interest, but it's something that is important because, I mean, we are not studying a topic in a scientific form only. It's not a piece, it's not a pure scientific subject, but it's a topic imbued by moral and ethical values, and that is influenced also by different positionalities and philosophical lines. So that's why sometimes it's challenging also for the coordinators to moderate certain topics. So that's why it was important to speak about peace or decolonizing. And so in relationship to what also Ilaria introduced at the very beginning, so related to histories of oppressions and coloniality, intersectional inequalities, and struggles moved by civil society movements against authoritarian institutions. So it was important also to give support to some causes or so I hope that these points could be
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and
thank you so much, Paola. Yeah. And I have this really unfair role of keeping the time.
It's over. It's over, and I sent
you so much. But it would be really
interesting
to have the link to the file that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I think we also want to hear from our participants here. We lost some people, about 20 people, but it's okay. I think it's part of the webinar format that some people may not be able to stay the whole length of the webinar session. But here we are proposing two things. On one way, we can now have a Q&A session. But then before leaving, please, it would be really nice to hear from you and hear what can be the expectations you have regarding this webinar series, because we are trying really to also, in a way, engage with the community and the network from a bottom-up perspective. So here you have a QR code, and it will bring you to Mentimer platform, where you can add your wishes for the future, or if you have any questions as well. Also, yeah, we will maybe go back to these answers at the end of the webinar series and see what has happened in between. But yeah, now I think it's time for opening the microphones. I hope that now the technical issues is solved. We try to adjust it meanwhile with the settings, that everyone could actually open up their microphone, and if anyone wants to bravely ask questions or write in the chat, this is the moment. I see Jürgen Altmann. Please.
Yes, okay. I'm a peace researcher and a physicist at TU Dortmund University. I do have two questions. First is, I am a long-time member of the EU Non-Proliferation and Disarmament Consortium, where several important peace research and strategy research institutes are the founding members. What is the difference to this consortium on the one hand, or what is the relationship with this on the other?
Thank you for your question, Jürgen. Do you have another question? Do you want to say it now?
If you wish, yes, please.
Yeah, I think we collect a couple of questions, and then we give the screen again to our speakers.
Yes, the second question is, the last working group meeting in May, on 9th of May, was not accessible remotely, unfortunately. I have no travel money, I'm retired, so I couldn't take part. So will the coming working group meetings also be remotely accessible?
Thank you for your questions, Jürgen. I can see also Giovanni Scotto has his hand raised.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Please, Giovanni. Yes. Nice to
Yes,
also know that you are with us.
Yeah, hello, Ilaria, and hi, everybody, dear colleagues. I have a very short and simple question. In my research group, we have a junior associate at this very moment without a contractual position, so basically having a sort of internship. And she's from a third state, namely from Kazakhstan. So I've checked meanwhile and see that Kazakhstan is not part of the COST project. So does the passport of the specific person count, or does the place of the partner count? So meaning if we are, as University of Florence, would interns or other people be able to participate in COST actions and be supported? Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Giovanni. And I can see there are also some questions in the chat. I can see Daniela Pastors has written that they would be interested in knowing who is around, what topics and people are working on, and suggesting that we could make a Zoom live survey and a little time for breakout sessions during one of the next webinars. So I can immediately reply to Daniela about this, that yes, for sure, the webinars will have a really different format. Today is more informative, so we thought that it was important to hear from Niels, Anush, and Paula. But we will also have more participatory format. So welcome to follow up what's coming next. I can see that Paula has put the link of the slides, but it's not for everyone. Now we can copy and paste. And we will send the slides so everyone can also send the feedback after the webinar. But now I would love to ask, maybe Niels, you can help with the questions that Jürgen has posed, and also, yeah,
Yes.
the question that Giovanni, I think you can reply to all of them, right? But
yes, I'll start with the administrative question from Giovanni. Yes. It's not the passport that counts. This is very important. Is that if there's a link to an institute which is in one of the member countries, this is enough to be reimbursed. But it's very important. Anybody with any passport can participate. So you can become a member of any working group, even if you are a scholar from New Zealand, based in New Zealand. But if that's the case, you cannot be reimbursed. But in your specific case, when it's a junior associate with a passport from Kazakhstan, but affiliated to an institute in Italy, she can be reimbursed for the activities that she participates in, of course, under the circumstances of reimbursement and so on and so on. So it's not the passport in itself for reimbursement, it's the affiliation to the institute that's important.
Thank you, Niels. Just a follow-up question. Whether do you need a formal contractual affiliation, or whether an informal statement that this person collaborates with me would be enough?
This is a tricky question. This is something I need to check in one of the 190 pages of rules. But if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, just a statement saying she's connected is not enough. There needs to be some kind of association, whether that's a formal contract or, for example, that her name is part of the website saying she's an associate researcher. I think that's probably enough, but I need to double check that to make sure that I can answer you correctly. Maybe then for the second questions from Jürgen, a couple of things. First of all, we are of course very much aware of the EU Non-Proliferation Disarmament Consortium. I'm also a member, by the way, and my institute has also been there participating for more than 15 years now. We are trying to be as complementary as possible. We try not to duplicate. So this was one of the discussions that we had before submitting our proposal to Cost Action, is should we do something on weapons and non-proliferation disarmament? But because there's already the EU Non-Proliferation and Disarmament Consortium, we decided not to do so. So we are really going for complementarity. What is very important is that the consortium is mainly focused on research organizations. We can be participating in the consortium, but also individual researchers. Our Cost Action is mainly solely focused on researchers. It's individual membership. It's not an institute who becomes a member of our network. Second question about the working groups. We aim to organize them as much as possible in a hybrid form or in an online form so that people can access from abroad, from different places. But this is not always possible practically. This was also not possible at the general meeting on the 9th of May. But it's definitely something that we aim to do. And when it's about the topics that are being discussed in the working groups, which I also saw in the chat, this is best to take that up also with the working group leadership. So this would be my advice. We have 5 working groups with each with its own leadership. We are trying to use a bottom-up approach as much as possible, but that also means that our network is decentralized, and it's best to see which working group fits best with your own specific profile, and then contact them directly and see what's going on, because they're now in charge of developing the new lines. Some of the working groups are talking about subgroups as well, something that was mentioned by Paola as well, just to make it workable and to see if there's a nice fit. But I think that's it for me for now.
Yes, and I saw that Clara Afun has also asked in the chat how to join the working groups, and I put in the chat the link to action, the Cost Action page related to our project, and also there are like all the instructions how to apply. Basically, you need to first create a profile, a e-cost profile, and then send your application. It's quite straightforward, I would say. I don't know, Niels, if you have anything else to add on this process of applying.
Yeah, maybe just to explain, I don't want to talk about procedures too much, but when you apply through the Cost Action website, it's best to motivate precisely why you want to join a specific working group, because it's the working group leaders who will evaluate all of the applications, and then we process them about once a month. So if you haven't heard from us in 2 weeks, it's normal. We cannot do this every day, so it's really on a monthly basis, but my advice is to motivate carefully why you want to join the membership of the working groups.
Also, there is a question from Thomas asking, is mentioning STSM as a good tool of networking, and he would like to know if we are limited to visit only European institutions. Can it be also in other continents, for example, Latin America? And maybe I can also add another question regarding from Amal, Linda, about financing conferences. If there is a shared list of eligible conferences, or if is funding considered as long as the conference is related to the cost thematics.
So I will take these questions, I guess.
Please,
for the first one about the short-term scientific mission, STSMs, it can be anywhere in the world. So Latin America, which is an example here, applies. And for the second one about conferences, we do not have a list at the moment, at least. It will be part of the grant awarding criteria at the end. If it is there, then it will be on our website. But at the moment, we don't have it, and it is not yet certain whether we will have it or not. So I would say wait for just a month or two once the criteria is available, and then you will see. At the moment, we do not have such a list.
Thank you so much.
As also it's a question apply to our objectives and also to the directions that the Peace Action is going towards. So
there is another question. I wonder if you answer to this question. Let me read it. Maeva Clement wrote, regarding the short-term scientific missions, you mentioned that members can apply for next year. Do you mean for a mobility next year, or application may only be submitted starting next year? And also asking what it means by short term. Is few weeks, for example. And then finally, Paula mentioned that such mobility grants were meant for early career researchers. Is there any thoughts regarding these for the grant selection criteria? For example, preference will be given to early career researchers. You can see the question in the chat. It's quite long. I mean, it's not one question, it's like many questions in a way.
Starting next year. So I think that maybe I would pass this question to Niels, because I do not know when the funding will be, when we will know how much funding we have, and so on and so forth. So maybe I will ask Niels to contribute.
Yes, no problem. So basically the short-term scientific missions, it's part of Cost Action's, let's say, diverse range of activities and funding possibilities. Within our own proposal, we focus on early career. So it's the next generation program, which will be really the core of these short-term scientific missions. This is important. How much money there will be available and when it will be available still needs to be agreed with Cost in itself. So we have to submit a new annual working and budget plan by October. And in this proposal, we need to explain how many and which budget and how many persons that we will try to fund. So that basically means you can only start applying once we know how much budget we will have. So you can only apply after October 2025 for activities to take place in the 12 months that follow there, basically. I hope that's clear.
Do we have any other questions coming? I can see, Paula, that someone is really positive about your idea, and it's Victoria, and she would like to collaborate regarding high scientific impact publication. So here we are, we start doing some networking. I wonder if we have more questions, or we can, maybe I can ask Bram, could you kindly share again the screen with the QR code?
Yeah, give me a second.
And as I already told, we're going to have different formats during the webinar series, and there will be more participatory format later on. But today the idea was like really to share information about what is the project, and what is the idea of the network, and also what is the idea with the webinar. I hope we were able to kind of achieve our goals. But if you can, yes. So if you want to take now 5 minutes and open in your devices the Mentimeter, it would be great, so you don't forget, because usually these kind of things are forgotten quite easily. So let's just take 5 minutes to go into Mentimeter, and then I'm happy to close soon the webinar. But let's take these 5 minutes. We would be really happy to get your feedback, and also having your expectations for the next sessions, because the idea for the webinar series is to create every session in cooperation with the leaders and also participants of the 5 peace working groups. And we ask the working groups to suggest a topic and to suggest speakers, but we can always also organize this webinar series together with the participants themselves. So for us, it's really valuable to have your feedback and your input, so we can truly design and implement the webinars in a way that fit our needs and expectations. And also in terms of like format, if someone already was suggesting to have more participatory format, we are really happy to also provide that kind of sessions. I also would like to thank warmly the webinar series coordinators who are working behind the scenes, Milady Cordero Ulloa and Judith Jorda Frias, and they're present here somewhere hidden in the behind the screen, and also Bram Desmet, who's our magician with the technology. Thank you so much for your work. They create the platform, the design, and the dissemination of the materials, and they coordinate the work with the webinar speakers and the moderators. So if you want to, again, contact us, you can write to webinar series at upra.org. If I remember correctly, but maybe this is something that Bram can correct me if I'm wrong. Is it so?
Yeah, you're wrong.
So it's UPRA.
It's
Peace.
webinar series at uprapeace.org.
UPRA Peace. Yes, that was I had this intuition that it was wrong. Webinar series at UPRA. Well, again, thank you to Cost Action Peace, SIA 23129, supported by COST, European Cooperation in Science and Technology. We will soon publish the next date for the next webinar on peace and climate. Again, it will be held between September and October. We need still to agree with the working group leaders and the speakers about the date. But we are really looking forward to the next webinar, and also to the whole webinar series. Is going to be a really interesting journey, and I wish you will participate, and also you will help us in reaching more people.